I just came across something wild that's happening in the tech world right now, and honestly, it could change everything about how we buy phones, laptops, gaming consoles, basically anything with a chip inside it. You ready for this? The US government is proposing a new rule, and it's kind of insane. For every chip a company wants to sell in America that was made overseas, they have to make one chip right here in the US, one for one. If they don't, they get slapped with a massive tariff. We're talking 100%. That means if a chip costs $10 to import, now it costs 20. Pretty wild, right? So let me walk you through what's actually going on here, why this matters to you, and what it could mean for the future. Okay, first, why is this even happening? Remember the pandemic when everything shut down and suddenly you couldn't buy a PlayStation or a new car because there weren't enough chips? Yeah, that freaked a lot of people out, especially the government. Turns out America barely makes any of its own chips anymore. We make about 12% of the world's semiconductors. 12. And get this, we don't make any of the most advanced ones. Zero. Back in the 90s, we made about 40%. So we went from being a major player to basically depending on other countries for the most important technology on the planet. And here's where it gets interesting. Almost all of the super advanced chips, the ones in your phone, your computer, AI systems, they're made by one company, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. They make over 90% of the world's best chips. 90%. One company in Taiwan. Now, you see where this is going? If something happens to Taiwan, like a conflict with China, or even just a natural disaster, the whole world is in trouble. No chips means no new iPhones, no laptops, no cars, no nothing. So the US government is basically saying, we can't let this happen anymore. We need to make chips here. And that's where this one-to-one rule comes in. Think of it like this. Imagine you run a lemonade stand and you've been buying all your lemons from a farm across town because they're way cheaper. But then one day, the mayor says, hey, for every lemon you buy from that farm, you have to grow one lemon in your own backyard. If you don't, you pay double for every lemon you bring in. Suddenly, you're forced to start planting lemon trees, even if it's expensive, even if it takes years for those trees to grow. That's basically what's happening with chips. Now, here's the thing. Building a chip factory, they call them fabs, is not easy. It takes years. It costs billions of dollars, like tens of billions. And even when you finish building it, you still have to figure out how to actually make the chips work right. It's not like flipping a switch. So a lot of companies are freaking out right now. Let's talk about who wins and who loses here. First, the winners. Intel. You've probably heard of them. They make chips, and they've been doing it in the US for a long time. They're already building massive new factories in Arizona, Ohio, New Mexico. They're getting billions of dollars from the government to do it. And now with this new rule, companies might be forced to use Intel instead of TSMC. So Intel stock actually went up when this news came out. Then there's GlobalFoundries. They make older chips, not the cutting edge stuff, but the chips that go in cars, medical devices, all that. They already have factories in New York and Vermont. So if companies need to make chips in the US, they're ready to go. Their stock went up too. Micron. They make memory chips. You know, the stuff that helps your computer remember things. They're the only American company that makes advanced memory chips. So if this rule passes, they're in a great spot because companies will have to buy from them instead of Samsung or other foreign companies. Texas Instruments. They make all kinds of chips for cars, phones, industrial machines. They already make a ton of stuff in the US, so they're golden. Pretty cool, right? Now the losers. Apple, Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, all the big names you know. These companies design chips, but they don't actually make them. They're called fabless companies. They rely almost entirely on Taiwan. And right now, there's no way they can make enough chips in the US to match what they import. So they're either going to have to pay huge tariffs or scramble to find new factories or raise their prices on their products. And guess who ends up paying for that? You, me, all of us. If it costs Apple more to make an iPhone, they're not just going to eat that cost, they're going to charge us more. So here's where it gets tricky. The government already passed something called the CHIPS Act a couple years ago. It's basically throwing hundreds of billions of dollars at companies to build factories here. TSMC is building 3 giant factories in Arizona. Samsung is building factories in Texas. Intel is going all in. Micron is investing $200 billion. But here's the problem. these factories won't be fully ready for years. Some won't be up and running until the late 20s, maybe even the early 30s. So what happens in the meantime? Well, companies either pay the tariffs and pass the cost to us, or they try to squeeze orders into the limited US capacity that exists right now. Either way, things could get messy. And here's another thing. Other countries might not be happy about this. If the US starts slapping tariffs on chips, other countries could do the same thing back to us. China, Taiwan, South Korea. They could all retaliate. And suddenly, we're in a trade war that makes everything more expensive for everyone. You see where this is going? But let's zoom out for a second. What's the big picture here? The US government is basically saying, we're done relying on other countries for the most important technology in the world. And honestly, I get it. Chips are in everything. Your phone, your car, your hospital equipment, military systems, AI. If you don't control your chip supply, you don't control your future. So yeah, it's going to be expensive. Yeah, it's going to take time. But the idea is that 10, 20 years from now, America won't be held hostage by what happens in Taiwan or China or anywhere else. And for companies that are already building here, Intel, Micron, GlobalFoundries, Texas Instruments, this could be their moment to shine. But for companies that aren't ready, it's going to be rough. So here's the takeaway. This one-to-one chip rule isn't just some random policy. It's a massive shift in how America thinks about technology, manufacturing, and national security. If it happens, it could reshape the entire tech industry. Some companies will thrive, others will struggle, and we as consumers might end up paying more for our gadgets in the short term. But long term, we might end up with a stronger, more secure tech supply chain, one that doesn't depend on a single country on the other side of the world. So yeah, keep an eye on this, because whether you care about tech or not, this is going to affect you. Catch you later on the next Quest for Profits video.